So I think we could, well, I'll give the microphone to Arnold, but as we all raise our glass to Arnold Fisher and the Fisher brothers.
I thought to become a legend you had to be dead. I'm standing here because I'm the middle of the family. There's my grandfather, my father, myself, and there's Winston and Stephen, and there's Kyle and Jake. It's the 5th generation. And I'm 86 years old, so I leave it to you guys to make the 6th generation. I haven't got the strength anymore. The family is a special family in that my grandfather and my uncles and my father came from Eastern Europe as bricklayers. And they started as bricklayers in the United States. They became bricklayer contractors. Then they became 6-story apartment house builders, laying their own brickwork. We, the 3rd generation, the middle generation, and the 4th generation, Winston and Stephen and Kenny, and the 5th generation of Kyle and Jake. New York, I've grown and lived in New York all my life. I stray once in a while, Florida once in a while. I go up north a little bit once in a while, but I'm a New Yorker. And if you don't believe me, just listen to my mouth. So I'm very proud to be the middle of this 5 generations. I'm handing it off to the 4th and 5th generation, and I know from knowing them that they'll continue this family and its reputation. I thank you very much for making me feel a little older tonight. But what we are now doing something for active duty American servicemen. Men and women who have come back from theater with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. We have built 7 spirit centers, we call them, around major Army, Marine, and now Air Force bases in the country. No government money, because we can do it half the time, half the cost, and twice the quality. And the great thing about it is, it's a 94% success rate in 7 of these units. And that's something we all can do. So again, thank you very much. I was only going to speak for an hour and a half. You've already told me, get the hell off. Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Arnold, I do think it's appropriate that he has, for everybody who knows or doesn't know, is an incredibly deep passion. A deep passion for creation. A deep passion for building beautiful buildings and impacting the skyline. I can tell you, for 111, it was his vision to come up with something that he looked at the top and said, we have to do something different. We can't just put on another, I want to have something that impacts the skyline that will be generational. And he had a deep commitment and a deep passion to building, and it is something that infects all of Fisher Brothers about the way we think. And it's the same also with this deep passion for helping people. It is an incredible energy, an incredible legacy that you're leaving for the troops and for everybody. And it is truly an honor to be your family and also to work under you. So congratulations on tonight.
Thank you, and it's a great honor my father's getting tonight. You know, as a boy, at 7 years old, I remember getting a car before my father did, and going to 299 Park Avenue on a Saturday. It'd be freezing, but I'd get in the car before he got in there, and it was, you know, something that I had passion for, building. And he taught me the ropes at a really early age. It was something that took to me, and it was something that I wanted to continue in life. It's, like Jamie said, it's more as far as being a builder that's important. Not just being a contractor, but being a builder and taking pride in what you're doing. And my father was very prideful in everything he did. So as time went on, we weren't building as much, and I got the opportunity to start a construction company, which was great, and we built over 50, 60 high-rise buildings in New York, Washington, Florida, and then it was time to get back into business. And Winston's done a hell of a job as far as developing the last couple of projects that we did. And I'm very proud to work with my son, who also built a couple of projects, and with Kyle. Kyle's fifth generation. So we take a lot of pride in what we do as a family and work together well. And I appreciate all you've done. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming through the rain. Realized you had to swim to get here. Doug Mass had half his suit looked like a washcloth. But it's really a pretty great thing to be here to celebrate a legend, and really a family that is legendary, of one of the great 5 families that we dream about as having made New York in development. Resnicks, Rudens, Rose, Durst, and of course Fisher. 5 generations. If we can imagine any of us doing anything for 5 generations, this family has been doing something extraordinary. You'll hear more not only about their great building and their development, but also their dedication to philanthropy, to duty in this country. And you know, so it's a very special thing to have them here. Speaking of longevity, I just briefly also want to say we should thank Carol Willis and everybody who works to make this museum happen. There is a bit of stamina here. The museum was started 20 years ago. That's a good run. Going even stronger now than in 5, 10 years ago, and 15 years since it moved into this great space. So Carol, a great proponent of the high-rise building, not only as architectural design, but also as economic engine, as structural feat, and everything else we can call a wondrous thing about the high-rise building. And we look just a block or so away from here to 111 Murray to see the Fisher Brothers' recent victory of making a great, great building for New York, one of the most elegant of high-rises to grace the skyline and to be inside. So with that, let me hand this over to Gene Cohn, who, again, speaking of longevity, as a young man, met Arnold. He'll tell you a little about that circumstance. So, Gene.
Thank you, Davey. I'm not that old. Thanks for coming to honor really one of the best and wonderful men in development, Arnold Fisher. I have a little story. When I first came to New York in when I first came to New York in the mid-'60s, I met the Fisher Brothers, Larry, which is Arnold's father, and they took me under their wing and kind of advised me how to survive in this city. I came from Philadelphia, which is my phone is ringing. Somebody we were calling earlier. So I was very fortunate because the Fisher Brothers took me under their wing, to give me advice. No buildings at that time, but advice. And it was very valuable. And I always felt indebted to them because they've been so helpful to me in the early days of my career in New York. And very fortunately, we've had a long, good relationship. And in terms of architecture, 111 Murray is the result of the most recent result of working with the Fisher brothers. They're truly a great family. And Arnold represents that family beautifully because also having been a Navy veteran myself and appreciating what Arnold's now been doing in the medical field of helping servicemen who've had injuries to their brain and helping them get treated and hopefully cured in many cases, so their lives improved. I mean, he's doing it all over the country on his own dollar, not the government's. And to me, that's the greatest accomplishment because really helping other human beings survive and enjoy a better life. So thank you, Arnold. I think that is fantastic. But as an architect, I truly appreciate what the Fisher brothers have been doing, both as developers, but as contractors, as builders. And it's the old, in a way, I hate to say old-fashioned, but the way it was years ago was being builders, not developers. You actually created the buildings that got built that you may own and hopefully do well with. So they go back quite a few years and we're key to the city of New York. Arnold, it's a great pleasure. I've always been very fond of you and to really reward you and honor you this evening for all you've done in both development, building, and charity, most important, helping servicemen have a better life. So with that, I'm very pleased to give you this award, but I think we're going to let
Give Arnold the award so we can take a picture. Okay. Arnold. Thank you. Here, Jamie, one more. There you go. And then I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. And staff got pictures as well. We put it here, and then we also want to have Stephen Winston say something. But first, let me say a little bit more about the Skyscraper Museum and about Fisher Brothers, because the idea of celebrating people who design and engineer and build and develop and operate commercial architecture, residential architecture as well, but high-rise architecture, which is, after all, our brand in New York, right? We're the skyscraper city. We are the birthplace, controversially, of the skyscraper, Pace, Chicago, but it's here in New York that the density, the concentration, the excitement of our skyline that gives the sense of energy in the city. And the people who built the skyline and who shaped the streetscapes of Manhattan and well beyond cut across many professions, and they're the people who are here tonight too. There are engineers, there are architects, there's builders, there's MEP engineers, there are developers, there are public servants, and the teams that come together in order to give value to the city. It really represents what we do collectively and what we celebrate at the Skyscraper Museum. So it was particularly fitting that Arnold and the Fisher family agreed to be an honoree tonight, because they represent the integration of all these different aspects. And I know that I'm very pleased that Jean mentioned about the patriotism of the family and how they continually give back. And when I sat with Arnold last month for about an hour and a half and we kind of, chatted and I heard some of his stories, there was always such an important part of what he projects as his image of giving back to the United States, of giving back to America for what we have enjoyed, the freedom we've enjoyed in our lives, and others have paid such a heavy price. Arnold and the Fisher family are often celebrated for that. But I think they're rarely celebrated for what they actually do in their day jobs, in the way that they give and make the history of New York, and in the visible landscape of our lives. And the Fisher brothers from 1915, but especially in the 1960s as they built 299 Park and the portfolio of skyscrapers of commercial office buildings that they have on Park Avenue and on 6th Avenue, made clear to me as a historian that the really important thing that you can do in order to make an impact on the skyline is to get a whole block of Park Avenue or 6th Avenue under your control and then build a skyscraper on it. It gives you a legacy that lasts for decades. And Arnold has continued the leadership of the family into the second generation, and then given his sons and his grandsons to the business as well. And Stephen is here, and his nephew Winston is here, and they were going to offer a toast as well. The one last thing I wanted to say, and Arnold made the point to me, and then Stephen just earlier today insisted how his identity in the 1960s was not as a developer, but as a builder, and that he learned how to make buildings as workers make them, to understand them, and in understanding them to take the next step in order to turn the city into buildings and buildings into a portfolio and a family dynasty in the real estate commercial architecture business. But to begin as a builder and to be proud of that and to understand what it means to put a building together and how key that was. And so many of you here tonight are in that business too. And so I thank you for being here and for helping to celebrate Arnold and the Fisher family.